Before we dive into this incredible story, make sure to subscribe to Deep Bible Chronicles and get your headset ready. Let's begin. The infinite void and the voice that spoke. Before any sound was heard, before time or matter even existed, there was only absolute silence. A formless emptiness without borders or direction. Not even darkness had a name yet, for darkness itself had not been called into being. It was nothing, complete, unfathomable, untouched. No star lit up the sky, because there was no sky. No waves crashed, for the seas had not yet been summoned. Everything was suspended in waiting. And then, in the midst of that eternal silence, a voice broke through. It wasn't a sound that could be measured, but a presence that needed no explanation. This voice, firm and creative, pierced the void and initiated everything. Let there be light. With this simple and monumental command, reality as we know it began to take form. Creation didn't begin with a chaotic explosion or a random accident. It began with a decision, a divine decree. Words that carried within them the seeds of time, space, and life. Light emerged without a visible source, yet with a clear purpose, to shatter the darkness. It was the first contrast, the first boundary, the first distinction between one thing and another. And God saw that the light was good. This was the first glance of approval over what had been made, the first moment in which goodness was named. Time itself was born when God separated the light from the darkness. Day came into being, and with it, night. A cycle had begun, the rhythm that would sustain all creation. The first day of existence brought not only light to the universe, but also order to chaos, structure to the void, and meaning to the unknown. The world was still formless, but the voice that echoed in that nothingness had already left its mark. A light was now shining where once there had been only silence. And everything that would come after would come from that one decision, God's choice to speak, to begin, to create. The separation of darkness and light. With the light now in place, something new was established: separation. Light and darkness, now distinct, formed two complementary poles. It was the beginning of creation's rhythm, day and night, brightness and shadow, a time to see and a time to rest. This wasn't merely a physical distinction, but a spiritual milestone. God was shaping the formless, organizing the chaos with precision, setting boundaries and purposes for every element. This separation between light and darkness is more than symbolic. It represents the foundation of divine order. There is a time for everything, and everything must have its place. God didn't just create light, He named it. He called the light day, and the darkness night. Naming isn't merely identifying, it's assigning identity, purpose, meaning. By naming day and night, God marked the beginning of history, the tempo that would guide the movement of life. This second act of creation reveals something powerful: God's absolute control over everything. Nothing is random. Creation is not the result of trial and error, but of intention and direction. Every detail is deliberate. Every boundary is measured. The alternation between light and darkness became the governor of time. There were no clocks yet, but there was already morning and evening. The second day ends with a full cycle. The universe begins to move to the beat of divine time, and the Creator watches with satisfaction. This act of separation also carries a quiet but profound message. Light doesn't erase darkness, it defines its limits. Evil had not yet entered the world, but from the very first days, God established that even darkness would exist under His authority. Every element of creation, even the night, serves a purpose under the Creator's command. And so, as day and night take turns, the stage of existence expands. Creation moves forward to its next phase. The firmament would be next, defining the space between the heavens and the earth. The firmament, when heaven touched the waters. The universe was still immersed in a boundless expanse. Waters covered everything, no edges, no height, no depth. It was a shapeless ocean where there was no up or down. But in the third creative movement, God established the firmament, a vast expanse amidst the waters, a visible space where the heavens would be drawn. Let there be a firmament in the midst of the waters, and let it separate the waters from the waters. With another command, full of intent, God created what we now call the sky, the great canopy stretched above us, the blue vault that still inspires humanity to look upward. The firmament divided what was above from what would remain below. It was as if God were sculpting the invisible structure of the cosmos, carving out space so the next layers of creation could emerge. With the firmament came the concept of altitude, lightness, and vastness. For the first time, eyes could lift, and above, there was something. The sky, in all its grandeur, came to cover the earth as a silent gift. It doesn't speak, but it testifies. It doesn't act, but it watches. The sky became the boundary between the Creator and the created, the space where human eyes would one day see signs, and the heavens would declare the glory of God. There are no mentions of color or brilliance at this stage. No stars, no sun, no moon yet. Only open space, an empty sky like a promise of what was still to come. But the separation was complete. The firmament was called heavens, and God saw that it was good. Creation was advancing with precision. First came light, then time, and now space. With each act, the universe became more habitable, more prepared to host life. And even without a single living creature present, everything already breathed design. Nothing was accidental. Everything followed the perfect rhythm of the Creator. The heavens were now in place. The waters had boundaries. Next, the earth would rise from the depths, and with it, the stage would begin to take on color and form. The call of the earth, the ground that gives life. The waters, once reigning over everything, now pull back. At the sound of the divine command, they gather in one place, as if obeying an invisible conductor. The land, hidden beneath the watery deep, begins to emerge. What was once concealed becomes visible. What was submerged now takes center stage. God calls the dry ground earth, and the gathered waters, he names seas. Naming is identity, and now the world begins to take on recognizable features. The soil appears as the foundation of visible creation, a firm stage upon which human history will unfold. Silent mountains, deep valleys, vast plains, all lie waiting, quietly anticipating their purpose. The land is still bare, but it's ready. There's a tension in the air. Something is about to burst forth. At that moment, God commands the earth to produce. He doesn't shape each plant with his hands. He gives the order, and the earth, already pregnant with his will, obeys. Herbs, seed-bearing plants, fruit trees that multiply life, each according to its kind, with its own unique identity. The once barren ground is now alive. The earth begins to breathe. Vegetation covers the emptiness with green, texture, color, and scent. For the first time, creation becomes visibly beautiful. Fields blossom. Seeds fulfill their cycle. The promise of harvest is born. And all this happens before the sun shines, before rain falls, or humans walk the earth. God shows that life does not depend on natural conditions, but on His word. The land didn't wait for fertilizers or seasons. It responded to the Creator's voice with immediate obedience. God looks upon the sprouting vegetation, the forming fields, and once again declares it good. The beauty of the world begins to unfold. Creation advances with majesty, like a symphony where each note is placed with purpose. Now the planet has form and function. The foundation is set, the soil is active, and the earth fulfills its first mission, to be fertile and abundant. Yet something is still missing. Light exists, but it has no visible source. That will change in the next act of creation. Green that springs forth. The earth breathes for the first time. With the rise of vegetation, the world finally gains color. Until then, creation had been grand, but austere. Now, the earth begins to breathe. Sprouts break through the soil, leaves open to the air, and flowers bloom in vibrant, silent tones. It's the first aesthetic act of creation. God is not merely forming a functional world, He's creating beauty. Seeds obey the Creator's voice and multiply according to their kind. There is no confusion. Each plant knows its role. The earth, once silent, now whispers life. The soft rustle of leaves in the wind, the cracking of roots breaking through the soil, the perfume of untouched blossoms, all of it is new. All of it is sacred. This vegetation emerges without the visible light of the sun, for the Creator has not yet assigned the celestial bodies. It's a powerful reminder. Life does not depend on natural sources but on the power of the Word. Nature exists not by accident, but by design. The command, "Let the earth produce," wasn't a suggestion. It was a summons into being. This green multiplication also introduces the concept of permanence. Seeds that produce more seeds. Fruits that carry the potential for future fruit. Creation is not static. It becomes cyclical. Vegetation is not mere decoration. It's the structure for the life to come. It will feed creatures not yet formed, shelter beings not yet breathing. Everything is being prepared in advance. God observes the planet now covered in life and once again declares it good. Creation is not rushed. It's built with intention, layer by layer. With every new command, the earth responds with silent obedience and overflowing abundance. Now the world pulses with shades of green. The ground fulfills its mission. And even without human eyes to behold or hands to harvest, the planet is already complete in its expression. But something is still missing to mark the rhythm of it all. The sky still needs its clocks. The sun, the moon, and the stars. The celestial clockmaker. Sun, moon, and stars in harmony. The world now has form. The sky stretches above, the earth stands firm, the seas are contained, and vegetation flourishes. But something is still missing, the visible markers of time. What had so far been guided by unnamed cycles now receives luminous rulers. With a majestic command, God creates the great lights of the sky, the sun, the moon, and the stars. These celestial bodies are not created merely to shine but to govern time. The Creator appoints the sun to rule the day and the moon to govern the night. The stars are not random, they mark seasons, days, and years. God is designing the cosmic clock, the calendar that will shape history, worship, harvests, gatherings, and anticipation. For the first time, the heavens become dynamic. The sun rises on the horizon and moves across the sky with majesty. Its light warms, defines shadows, and gives direction. The moon appears as a soft, silvery mirror, guiding the nighttime cycles. The stars, countless, shimmer like jewels on a dark canvas, a reminder of God's greatness and precision. Each body is in its rightful place. No orbit is chaotic, no glow is wasted. The universe now turns with rhythm. The day gains structure. The night, identity. Time, once abstract, is now seen, felt, measured. And even with all their grandeur, the Bible is clear. These are not gods. They are creations, instruments of God. In a time when many cultures worship the sun and moon, Genesis delivers an unshakable truth. The Creator is greater than creation. The sun brings light, but does not reign. The moon reflects, but does not rule. Dominion belongs to the Lord. God looks upon the illuminated heavens and sees that it is good. The universe now not only exists, it pulses in harmony. Creation moves to the rhythm of divine time. And beneath that regulated sky, the world is now ready to receive moving life. Beings that swim, fly, and soon will walk. The singing sea and the dancing sky. The creation of animals. The stage of life is set. Time has structure, the ground is fertile, the stars move in perfect orbit. Now, God fills this world with motion and sound. Creation is no longer merely contemplative, it becomes alive. With a direct command, the Creator says, "Let the waters teem with living creatures, and let birds fly above the earth." Suddenly, the once silent oceans sing with the dance of fish. Whales slice through the seas with majesty. Schools of fish move in unison, as if swaying to a melody only they can hear. The sea, which once only reflected the sky, now vibrates with life. Every marine creature, from the tiniest plankton to the most colossal deep-sea giant, is the work of God's breath. In the skies, birds take flight for the first time. Wings stretch, the air is sliced, and the sky, once just backdrop, becomes a path of freedom. Birds of every kind emerge, some soaring with elegance, others flapping furiously, some singing melodious songs, others gleaming like flying rainbows. Each one is crafted with unique details: feathers, beaks, wings, colors, chosen with care and poetry. The fifth day of creation marks an explosion of diversity. Every species is created with a role, with a place in the divine ecosystem, and more, with the power to multiply. God blesses them, saying, "Be fruitful, multiply, and fill the waters of the seas, and let the birds multiply on the earth." Creation is not only functional, it is fruitful. It doesn't stagnate, it grows. This moment is special because it introduces something new, God's direct blessing upon living beings. He doesn't just create them, He sends them out to explore, live, expand. It reveals God's desire for abundant life, for movement, for cycles and wonder. And God saw that it was good. The sky and sea now pulse with sound, color, shape, and rhythm. Creation has found its breath. But the land still waits in silence. One final step remains, a step that will connect heaven and earth forever. A being made in the image of the Creator. The touch of the eternal, the emergence of humankind. The earth sang with the wind. The seas danced with the schools of fish. The skies celebrated with birds in flight. But something was still missing. On the sixth day, the Creator chose to form a different kind of being, one that would reflect His own image, carrying not only life but also consciousness, will, and spirit. Let us make mankind in our image, in our likeness. This decision bears divine weight. God does not merely create, He shapes, intimately and carefully. Humanity does not come from a word alone, like the others. Man is formed from the dust of the earth, molded by the Creator's hands, and then receives the breath of life. The divine breath turns dust into a soul. It's the eternal touching the finite. And thus, the first man, Adam, is formed. His eyes open to a world fully prepared. Everything was made for his arrival. He does not need to create, he needs to care, cultivate, steward. God gives him Eden, a garden of delight, where harmony between heaven and earth is complete. Adam is given authority, but also responsibility. He is called to govern with the heart of the one in whose image he was made. But God also sees that it is not good for man to be alone. So from Adam himself, he forms Eve, not from new soil, but from his rib, a gesture of unity, partnership, and equality. Eve is not made to be inferior or superior, but side by side, from the same essence, the same breath. The first human relationship is a glimpse of the beauty of communion. Together, Adam and Eve receive God's blessing. Be fruitful and multiply. Fill the earth and subdue it. They are called to continue creation, to extend God's order across the world. Humanity is born with purpose, mission, and identity. This is the climax of the universe's story. Everything builds to this moment. The creation of man and woman as the visible image of the invisible God. They speak, feel, create, nurture, relate, just like the one who made them. Now the earth is full. The sky has its lights. The seas, their creatures. The air, its flyers. And the earth has its guardians. The Garden of Freedom, Eden and God's rest. The Creator had completed His work. Every detail of the cosmos, from the smallest seed to the farthest star, had been designed with precision and beauty. The world was now inhabited, ordered, alive. And at the center of this freshly made universe, God planted a garden, Eden, a place where heaven met earth, spirit met matter, Creator met creation. Eden was not just a beautiful place. It was a natural sanctuary where man and God could walk together. Rivers flowed there. Fruit trees of every kind grew. And in the center stood two special trees, the tree of life and the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. God placed the man and woman in this space to cultivate and guard, but also to choose. Because Eden was more than a home, it was a place of freedom and obedience. God did not create robots. He made beings capable of love, and for love to be real, there must be the freedom to choose. The forbidden tree symbolized this, the boundary between human dominion and divine sovereignty. A reminder that although made in God's image, man was still a creature, not the Creator. Eden was also a place where God's presence was tangible. There was no shame, no fear, no distance. The man and woman were naked, yet there was no guilt. Everything was transparent, pure, and light. Creation and Creator were in perfect harmony. And then, on the seventh day, God rested. Not because he was tired, but because his work was complete. God's rest wasn't the end of creation, it was its pinnacle. The Sabbath became a sign of covenant, a symbol that the universe was not made only for labor, but for relationship, for awe, for worship. This rest inaugurated the rhythm of life: work and rest, action and adoration. The Sabbath is not empty, it is filled with the presence of God. It reminds us that we were created not just to rule the world, but to walk with the one who made it. Adam and Eve, at this point, lived in communion, with creation, with each other, and with God. Everything was whole, stable, and balanced. Eden was the reflection of the Creator's heart, a place of life, freedom, and trust. But this harmony would soon be tested. What came next would reveal the price of freedom, and the depth of the human fall. The day everything changed, the choice that broke paradise. Eden was perfect. Man and woman lived surrounded by beauty, provision, communion, and freedom. But at the heart of this abundant garden stood a choice. The tree of the knowledge of good and evil remained, not as a trap, but as a symbol of the freedom God gave his creatures. It was a reminder that true love can only exist where rejection is possible. And then came the day everything changed. The serpent, more cunning than any other creature, introduced doubt. Its whisper was subtle, but piercing. In speaking to the woman, it twisted God's command, questioned his intentions, and planted a seed of distrust. Eve looked at the tree with new eyes, desirable for gaining wisdom, good for food, pleasing to the eye. And in a single act, trust was broken. Eve ate the fruit and gave it to the man, who also ate. In that moment, their eyes were opened, but not in the way they expected. Instead of enlightenment came shame. They saw themselves naked, not just in body, but in soul. They tried to cover, hide, protect. When they heard God's voice in the garden, they didn't run to him. They ran away. The relationship, once intimate and free, was now marked by fear. Sin wasn't merely breaking a rule, it was breaking a bond, rupturing trust, choosing life apart from God. God, in confronting them, was not surprised. With firm love, he revealed the truth. The serpent would be cursed, the ground would resist, childbirth would bring pain, relationships would carry tension. But even amid judgment, there was a promise. God spoke of a descendant of the woman who would crush the serpent's head. Hope was planted in the same soil where humanity fell. God clothed them with garments of skin, an act of grace, a sign of care. But they were expelled from the garden. Eden, once a sanctuary, became a paradise lost. Misused freedom led to exile. Creation, once singing in harmony, now groaned under the weight of separation. The seventh day had ended, but rest was interrupted. The world once called very good, now bore the marks of human error. Yet the story does not end here. The God who formed man with his hands did not give up on him. Redemption was already in motion. The first week of existence ended with a wound, but also with a promise. What we can learn from the first week of existence. As we reflect on the 7 days of creation and the beginning of human history, we're not simply looking at an ancient account. We're standing before a narrative that still echoes within us. Every step of the Creator, every detail of Eden, every choice made, reveals deep truths about who God is, who we are, and how we are meant to live. 1. God brings order to chaos. Creation begins with the earth formless and empty, and ends with a world that is beautiful, functional, and full of life. This reminds us that even when our lives feel disordered or directionless, God has the power to shape, define, and guide. He transforms confusion into harmony, with His Word, in His time, and by His presence. 2. We were created with dignity and purpose. To be made in the image and likeness of God is more than a title, it's a calling. We were created to reflect the character of our Creator, to cultivate, to care, to build, and to walk in relationship with Him. Our existence is no accident. We are part of an intentional and eternal story. 3. Rest is sacred. On the seventh day, God rested, not out of fatigue, but to teach us that life isn't only about productivity. Rest isn't the end of work, it's the space where we recognize that everything comes from Him. In a fast-paced and anxious world, this lesson is more relevant than ever. We need to pause, to worship, to breathe, and to trust. 4. Freedom demands responsibility. Eden was full of beauty and abundance, but it also had boundaries. God gave humanity the gift of choice. And when that freedom was used to break trust, the world broke too. This teaches us that our decisions matter, that true freedom walks hand in hand with obedience. 5. God is just, but He is also merciful. Even after the fall, the Creator didn't abandon humanity. He confronted them, yes, but He also covered them. He sent them out, yes, but He also promised a Redeemer. Grace was already present in Genesis. And that same grace is still available to each of us, every single day. 6. Hope is born even in the midst of ruin. The creation story doesn't end in failure. It ends in promise. The promise that one day the relationship between God and humanity would be restored. The promise that evil wouldn't win. From the very beginning, God was writing a story of redemption, and we are part of it. The journey of creation is, in truth, a mirror of our own lives. A call to recognize the Creator, to live with purpose, to rest in His goodness, to choose wisely, and to never give up hope.